left Ho Chi Minh City in the afternoon and took a 1-hour flight to the city of Siem Reap in northwestern Cambodia. We stayed in the Regency Angkor Hotel that night and were on a bus early the next morning to visit the temples. This portion of Cambodia is totally focused on tourism. There are many new hotels and a new tourism center where we purchased our tickets to visit the temples. The town is busy and there are motorcycle taxis everywhere. At the same time, it was clear that this part of Cambodia is in an earlier stage of economic recovery compared to other countries we had visited. This is the result of the reign of terror and genocide by the Khmer Rouge from 1975 to 1979, followed by the occupation by Vietnam until 1989. As we approached Angkor Wat, the roads were lined with vendors and tourists. We learned that Angkor Wat is now the most popular tourist destination in the world. We saw a monument indicating that Angkor Wat was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1992. And walking further, we could finally see the temple in the distance. We rested for a moment under a tree next to a 190-meter wide moat that surrounds the temple. On the other side of the water is the largest religious monument in the world at over 400 acres. It was constructed by King Suryavarman II in the 12th century to be a microcosm of the Hindu universe, culminating in the 5 peaks of Mount Meru, the home of the gods in Hindu mythology. Angkor Wat is a pyramid with 3 levels enclosed by an outer wall containing a hallway or gallery with corner towers plus 4 entrances or gopuras. The summit is crowned with 5 towers arranged with 1 at each corner and the highest in the center known as the quincunx. Before we proceed, we're attracted to a wedding couple having photos taken in front of the temple. Note the matching style and color of their outfits. Then we noted the restored head of the Naga beside the unrestored lion. The contrast of restored and unrestored figures speaks to the century-long restoration process and the battle against thieves who have stolen and sold many of the artifacts from the temple. As we cross the causeway, we note that Angkor Wat means Temple City, and there was a city and a royal palace next to the temple at the time it was built. It was converted from a Hindu to a Buddhist temple in the 13th century, and although it was neglected after the 16th century, it has never been abandoned. The west wall includes the remains of 3 towers. The entire wall is 230 meters long, and the gopura is large enough to allow elephants to pass. At a distance on either side of the temple are 2 libraries. These libraries did not hold manuscripts, but would have held shrines of some kind. Climbing the steps to the center gopura, the relief above the outer entrance shows a battle scene from Ramayana. After passing the entrance, a short distance on the right is an 8-armed statue of Vishnu, the principal deity of Hinduism. Looking to the left is a relief of the goddess Apsara. This is one of 2,000 likenesses of Apsara in Angkor Wat. Exiting the gopura, we see the causeway to the 2nd level of the temple. Arriving at the temple, we climb steps in semi-darkness leading to the 2nd gallery, which contains a multitude of reliefs, including these of Apsara. Upon exiting, we see 4 rectangular stone basins that once held pools of water. This structure, along with the steps, is known as the cruciform cloister. We continue climbing the steps to the second level and emerge to see the spectacular mastiff of the central towers from the courtyard. With extremely steep steps, it appears to be the final ascent of a spiritual mountain. On the south side is a less steep stairway with a handrail, but the queue is long and our time is short, so we continue walking. We wandered the temple galleries and saw some of the finest reliefs in Khmer art, including many more apsaras and carvings of battles, including the Battle of the Devas and Asuras, along with many armies, kings, gods, and even monkey people. We also saw inscriptions on walls and pillars written in Sanskrit and Khmer. The Sanskrit are religious in nature, while many of the Khmer inscriptions are lists of goods belonging to the gods. One could spend weeks here and never see everything, but we're out of time and must hurry back to our bus, so we close with this collage of photos. Our next stop is Banteya Shiray Temple, which is 12 miles north of Angkor Wat. Along the way, we got a glimpse into the lives of local Cambodians. We saw children, some of whom appeared to be on their way to school. About half of the monks we saw on this trip were on cell phones. We saw some attractive new homes and others that were more modest. Many houses are built on stilts because during the rainy season this area is often flooded, but it's also helpful in keeping out snakes. The name Banteya Shiray means Citadel of the Women or Citadel of Beauty. This is because of the small size and delicacy of decoration. This temple is unique in its miniature scale and near total decoration of its surfaces. We approach the temple through the east town Gopura, which is made of pink sandstone. Above the doorway is Indira and his three-headed elephant, Airavata. Passing through the doorway, we enter a passageway flanked on both sides by laterite walls, stone pillars, and boundary stones. The next doorway, with double-tiered pediments, takes us through a labyrinthine wall into a crowded central enclosure. Here we see the central shrine and 3 sanctuary towers, all in pink sandstone. On these structures are sandstone relief carvings that are among the finest in Khmer art. Narasimha claws Hiranya Yakshipu. Shiva, the god of destruction, sits with his wife Parvati. The goddesses Devata and Raven. The fight between Valen and Sugriva. The sanctuary towers are protected by statues of guards having human bodies and monkey heads. There are other statues of human protectors. We take a last look around before we depart to visit the next temple in this whirlwind day of touring remarkable sites. Our next destination is Angkor Wat, which was founded in the 12th century and remained the largest Khmer city and capital until the 17th century. The city is surrounded by a moat which encloses an area of 2,200 acres. We arrive at the south gate with its tower having 4 faces pointing in cardinal directions. The opening is just wide enough for small vehicles to pass. The bridge is lined with statues of gods on the left and asuras or demons on the right. Many of these have been restored to replace heads that were worn, damaged, or stolen. At the entrance to the bridge are Naga balustrades, which act as guardians to the city. After passing through the gate, we travel to the Bayon Temple. The temple passed through the Pantheon, Hindu, and Buddhist religious phases, and each added complexity. Today there are 37 towers, and most are carved with 4 faces. Climbing the stairs, we pass protective lions and nagas. We pass the dancing apsaras on the column of the outer gallery and devatas on the wall of the library. Once inside, we find ourselves in a maze of narrow corridors, galleries, and rooms that were once Buddhist chapels. Back outside, we continue climbing and experience an up-close and personal look at the face carvings. We worked our way back to the entrance, knowing that it would take a lot more time than we had to see everything this temple had to offer. As we were leaving the area, we made a quick stop at the Elephant Terrace. This is a 300-meter-long sandstone wall that features relief sculptures of elephants and various mythical creatures. Our final stop was the Ta Prohm Temple Monastery. This temple was chosen to be left in its natural state as an example of how most of Angkor looked at the time of its discovery in the 19th century. The temple is a crowded 2.5 acres of closely spaced buildings, but it was once surrounded by a village of 80,000 people. Visiting this site leaves you with 2 overriding impressions. The first is the destruction from the walls and buildings that have fallen down and lie in disarray. The second are the massive trees with tangled, choking roots that have grown up and through the buildings and the walls, providing a canopy of shade far above the temple. Two species. The larger is the silk cotton tree, distinguished by its thick pale brown roots and a knobby texture. The smaller is the strangler fig, which has a mass of thinner, smooth gray roots. Much of the building destruction was due to the seeds of trees taking hold in crevices between the stones. The roots work their way between the masonry, and as they thicken, they gradually wedge open the blocks. As we explored the temple, we encountered many relief carvings, including Devatas, a stegosaur-like animal, and many others. We passed through the galleries of the cruciform cloister and worked our way to the exit at the far end of the temple, emerging at the face tower over the western Gopura. This concluded our tour of the ancient Angkor temples and gave us much to consider as we continued our journey.